This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
What's up, everybody? Ricky Widmer here, along with the Mark Weber.
Dub them ease.
It's good to... I feel like I have not said your name in quite some time.
Well, it's
been two
only
podcasts.
Well, it's really only been one podcast, but the draft, we had extra stuff.
Well, yeah, 1 week. Like, Sean and I were on last week, but we had the extra draft one, so that added another one. And I haven't seen your wonderful face, man.
Yeah,
How is Philly? Now that we can say that because you're no longer there.
It's a weird place. I mean, seriously, Philadelphia is a weird place. First of all,
you can park in the middle of the street.
You can park in the middle of the street, but only in South Philly.
Okay.
If you're from Philadelphia right now, you can talk all about
Jake.
this. Literally,
Jake, I'm looking at you.
People, first of all, it's a weird city. It's not a grid like Chicago, New York, things like that. It just sprawls all over the place.
Okay.
They had a weird law before that was like you couldn't be taller than the Capitol building, so that kind of made some weird things happen.
Okay.
Plus, it's just an old city. So one time there was literally a 7-way intersection.
A 7-way intersection?
Yeah, it was like a 4-way intersection and then random other things coming in at the corners. It was really, really weird. And then to top all this off in South Philly, you can just park your car in the median. You can just do it.
And just get out.
You can. I mean, it's literally, the median is just lined up with cars. But
I would be too worried about somebody hitting my car.
They don't care. And so, I mean, Chicago has a weird one too. Chicago has you put your foldable chair to reserve your spot.
Hell yeah.
And people are like, oh, that's his spot.
Oh man, he put the chair there.
But I went to Tony Luke's.
Okay.
So Tony Luke's is a very well-known place to get your Philly cheesesteak. He beat Bobby Flay, is what I've been told.
Okay.
On Beat Bobby Flay.
Okay.
Which I texted my wife about that because we watch Beat Bobby Flay quite often.
I thought you were going to say, because she loves Bobby Flay.
We do. We like Bobby Flay.
Okay.
But yeah, it was cool. I mean, I wasn't there for very long. I didn't go up the Rocky Steps or anything like that.
You didn't lick the Liberty Bell like Barney Stinson told you to?
I did not. Fun fact about, though, even though I didn't go there, but the Rocky
statue.
Yeah, the statue. People always think it's at the top.
It's at the bottom.
It's at the bottom. Yeah. Once we learned that, it was like, oh, I'm not really that excited to go there anymore.
I don't want to go because climbing the steps, then you get to see it. That's what I thought it was.
If I don't have to climb the steps to go to it, I don't really care. Just give me this cheesesteak, under the interstate.
We got to get Mark there in his gray sweatpants and his gray zip up jacket, the little beanie worn down to here. You're running up. We got to get a picture of that. You run up the
I don't
stairs.
really want to do it.
No, you don't.
I don't really want to do that much.
But welcome into the Onside Kick, a long intro for the Onside Kick. A little housekeeping here before we get into every NFL thing we're going to talk about today is, number one, you want to help support the channel, go check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. I mentioned Jake. He's one of them. He supports us each and every month. Also, you can get your MVP t-shirts. This isn't one. This is a Radar Superstar shirt. But you can get an MVP t-shirt down below in the store link in the description. MostValuablePodcast.com is where you get everything for MVP each and every day. And last but not least, if you're on iTunes, on Apple Podcasts, go give the Onside Kick, Rick and Johnny Podcast, Primetime Podcast, Fast Break, all the MVP podcasts, Graphic Conversation, a 5-star rating on iTunes. And Mark, we got a jam-packed show today.
Yep.
Talking NFL draft pretty much the whole way through. We're going to talk winners and losers like we did last year. We're going to look at Darius Geis. Did the Redskins get a steal when they got Geis later in the draft? And then we're going to look at the rookie quarterbacks. I know Dave, Sean, and myself looked at them the night of the first round, but you weren't there. We got to talk about which one of these rookie quarterbacks will be starting day one for their individual teams. Let's start, though, with winners and losers. I'll let you go first. Let's start on a high note. Give us your first winner of the draft.
So this one's a strange one where I'm going to call them a winner, even though long-term wise, I don't know how it's going to play out. But my first winner is the New York Giants.
Ooh, okay.
And the reason for that is, even though I do think I would have probably went and gotten Sam Darnold, even though in my mock draft I had them doing exactly what they did. They took Saquon Barkley. I was thinking long-term, but they're sitting there saying, no, we can still win now. And really having Saquon Barkley And I know people on Twitter were a little angry about it too, because they're saying really a number 2 overall on a running back, but they're a competitor now. I mean, without a doubt, assuming that their wide receivers are healthy.
That's the one thing I don't understand with people who are like, why did the Giants take Saquon number 2?
To win a Super Bowl today.
We have bitched about this team not taking a running back. How many years? Oh, they don't have a run game. Didn't get a good enough running back. They don't have a run game. Didn't get a good enough running back. Now they do, and you're telling them, I wouldn't have done that.
And people get really kind of worked up about Jordan Howard, about from Kansas City, whose name I'm blanking, even though he was my running back in fantasy football.
You're talking about not Charkandrick West.
Right, we're blanking on the name right now.
I'm blanking on it. I have
I'm not
his
worried
face
about it.
in my head.
You look it up, but like we're at Alvin Kamara,
Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, Kareem Hunt. I should have known that because he was my guy in fantasy.
Toledo.
I drafted him in like the very, very end, and I was like, yeah, why not? You know, Alvin Kamara, who was he a 5th or 6th rounder? He was towards the very end of the draft. We're very worked up on but you can get a good running back later. But how many running backs are drafted every year and are nothing? You're more likely to get a guy in the 3rd, 4th, 5th round that's bad as opposed to getting a good one.
Here's the thing I think about with the Giants. It's like, yeah, I can go and I can get a Kareem Hunt. I can get an Alvin Kamara. Or I can spend a top 5 pick and get a Leonard Fournette.
Yeah.
Like that, Saquon's not going to be the same type of runner. That's not what I'm saying. But he could be the same thing to this Giants team, impactful-wise.
And I
Leonard
think
Fournette was.
Leonard Fournette's great, and, you know...
Ezekiel Elliott.
That's the better one because Leonard Fournette's fantastic, but they've got the defense.
Yeah.
You know...
so the Giants, apparently, they spent big bucks on it last year.
They did.
It just didn't have any offensive help last year.
It sure did not. But, like, you look at a guy like Zeke, and it's really a one man... And Dak Prescott was a new hot thing, too.
Yeah.
But one man came in, and all of a sudden, this team was great.
They also had a great offensive line, though.
Great and young.
Yes.
You know, New York offensive line, maybe not so good. But they added some stuff with Will Hernandez getting through the draft. You also had Nate Solder. So you have some options here to kind of fix the offensive line a little bit. But I honestly think that adding Saquon Barkley is a great win now type of move. Who knows 5 years down the line? I'm not that worried about it. But if you're saying you can win a Super Bowl in the next 3 years, that's a winning draft right there.
Before I give my first winner, the last thing I'll say about the Giants is the thing I don't hate about them going Barkley over Darnold is which quarterback they got later. Because they got Kyle Luletta, he's a project, but if you're going to commit to Eli, and let's say Eli's there 2-3 years, that'll give Luletta enough time to where, let's be honest, he may be like Aaron Rodgers. I'm not saying the same way of like where Rodgers was, he should have been number 1 in that draft class, but went all the way to 20. This kid's a project, but working with Schumer, he can really get that potential out of him while Eli Manning is winning games early on.
You have a really good and intelligent quarterback with a great connection to Peyton Manning. You can't ignore that part just for mentorship material. And you have a guy who is known as a quarterback guru in your coach, Schumer. So, Shermer.
Did I say Schumer? I meant Shermer.
No, I said Shermer. I said Schumer instead of Shermer at first.
Not Amy.
That's exactly what popped into my head for her new movie coming out. But, you know, you have a lot of good options to develop in the future. But I'll let you take a team because I don't want to talk about the Giants forever.
Cleveland Browns absolutely won this draft to me. And the reason why isn't just because of the Baker Mayfield
I mean, when you
pick.
got a lot of picks, I hope you do.
The thing with them is they got a lot of picks, but for me, they got guys that I absolutely love. Like, I can go down and go, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, their first 7 picks, which, they had 9. So the majority of their picks, I really like. Like, Baker Mayfield, he was, to me, although I wasn't as ballsy as some, and I had Josh Allen as my first quarterback off the board, Baker Mayfield was the one I liked them. Him and Lamar Jackson were the two that I liked the most, personally. Then you get Denzel Ward, a guy who, when we did our live mock draft, when I was the Browns, I traded up just to get this kid. Like, that's what I did.
Because he fell a little bit.
Yeah, but he's that good of a corner. They also need a corner to match with their secondary in Cleveland.
Well, I mean, then you essentially draft your starting. I mean, he's your number one cornerback right now.
And you get your hopefully franchise guy in Baker Mayfield, a guy who I think his personality is going to fit in great with that Cleveland kind of town and that Cleveland mentality. Austin Corbett, love him on the offensive line. Nick Chubb, although Darius Geis was still available.
This was an interesting one to me.
However, I like it. There's another team I'm going to bring up for my losers that drafted a running back I don't like, and they passed on Geis as well. Although you passed on some running backs to take Nick Chubb, I like that pick for the Cleveland Browns because you bring in Carlos Hyde. You don't need a back to be the bell cow. You can have kind of Carlos Hyde be like the Sony Michel type back. Nick Chubb, just do what you did in Georgia, pound up the middle, get us those yards.
And I like Nick Chubb.
And then it's like the next three. I like Chad Johnson on the defensive line. He was going to be a later round pick that I think was going to be a nice pickup for any team that got him. I like Avery, the linebacker from Memphis. The one I really do like is another offensive one. This was a guy that I looked at as a sleeper of mine. I know he tested positive for marijuana at the combine, where part of me is like, come on, you knew you were getting like, it's not that you did it. It's that you knew you were being tested.
It's that you were
and
dumb
you still
enough
did.
to go through and get the positive test.
You were dumb enough to get popped, basically, for it. However, Josh Gordon's there, can probably mentor this kid on that. I love the skills that Antonio Callaway has. So you just add that.
Saying that Josh Gordon is going to mentor him,
man,
silly.
he's turned his career around, man. He's coming back. But you add him to this wide receiver core, the first 7 picks in this draft for Cleveland could be really solid picks for them this year and going forward.
Yeah, it's interesting with Cleveland because they did a lot because they had the option to do a lot. I mean, but the thing that I know it's a new day in Cleveland. You know, the uniforms they're not brighter again, but they're still bright.
And they're Joe Thomasless, which is sad.
That is something. But for the Cleveland Browns, for me, the worry is always the fact of they're always at the top. This isn't the first time they've had a lot of picks. Let's see how it goes. And the thing that scares me, draft-wise, yes, winners. But the thing that scares me still is Hugh Jackson is a bad head coach. He is one single win. That's all he has in 2 years.
Baker Mayfield going to get him
31.
16. It's going to give him 16 in a year. Baker Mayfield, 16-0, baby.
He was a guy who people really expected to be able to make that offense happen, and nope. So it worries me with Baker Mayfield a little bit because I really like Baker Mayfield, but I don't like him right now necessarily. I'm going to like him, I think,
down the line.
Yeah, a little bit further. And Cleveland likes to draft quarterbacks constantly, so we'll see what happens.
Before we get into losers, do you have another winner?
Another winner. I'm not going to talk about them, but just shout out to the Chicago Bears for what they did to basically
go check out the Outcasts.
Yeah, check out the Outcasts for that because they talked about Roquan Smith and how even though he's probably I still say I wanted Tremaine Edmonds because I think he has a higher ceiling. But having just a really competent leader on the defense, that's a really great pick. They had a lot. They addressed a lot. Listen to the Outcast; they'll talk about it. The other one I want to talk about, just because of one thing that they did, is I don't want to call them a complete winner. They just got a steal. Is the Arizona Cardinals because of Josh Rosen? Because
overall, their draft to me is not as impressive. It's just Josh Rosen.
Exactly. They weren't winners in the draft, but they got their quarterback, who honestly is the most NFL ready quarterback day one, which is funny because he's the only one that has a real starter in front of him in Sam Bradford. But we'll talk about that later in the podcast. But yeah, I just like the fact that they got him at kind of a steal.
The last team, and I'm kind of in my head, kind of pitching around 2 teams that I think I could give my last winner to. Fuck it, I'm going to mention both of them. The first one I'm going to mention is my Minnesota Vikings. They're a team that I thought had a really nice... I thought that looking at this, that they had a draft that you would even like. because they picked up guys like
I actually
Brian
usually
O'Neill.
like what they do.
They picked up Brian O'Neill, who you had in your first round because you love him. They picked up Mike Hughes, the cornerback that you
Also
really
love
like.
him.
Jalen Holmes, a pass rusher on the defensive line, a DE that I really like. And then later in the 6th round, they got a Colby Gossett, he's a guy where I thought he would go earlier than 6.
Yeah, I actually always like what the Vikings do in the draft. They do a really, really good draft, really good job scouting and drafting. I mean, there's a reason why they have some of the, I think they have like the most or second most Pro Bowlers in the last, 5, 6, 7 years or something like that they've drafted. They've done a really good job with that. They're always good. That's a reason why they have such a solid young team.
But the true team I'm going to use as my last winner, and it pains me to say this, Mark, because I hate their guts.
Are you going to say the Packers?
The Packers.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, come on. You get Jair Alexander, who top 3 corner in this draft. You get Josh Jackson in the 2nd. To me, you could argue that could be the steal. Like, yes,
that
Rosen,
one's great.
but yes, Josh Jackson in the 2nd could be the steal of the draft.
Here's the problem with that, though. Does he fit the Packers?
They just need guys to take away the ball at this point.
But here's the problem. He is a zone corner. The Packers are not a zone team.
We don't know exactly what they're going to do defensively. They're bringing in Mike Pettin this year for defense.
That's true. It is different defensively.
We don't know what Mike Pettin's going to want to do with that. I love those first 2 picks. I love Odin Burks, the outside linebacker out of Vanderbilt. They get Equiminius St. Brown. Like, hey, we're not going to get a wide receiver early on. We'll just get Equiminius St. Brown, the tall guy who I thought was going to go to the Bears, the tall guy who can run really fast. Aaron Rodgers is just going to have to throw it up.
Yeah.
That is going to be a match made in heaven.
I mean, the thing
made in heaven.
The thing that the Packers did, which is fantastic for them, is, they're scared of Trubisky. And they went and got 2 corners. That's all it is. No, but really, the reality is Kirk Cousins is what they just did, unfortunately. I hate to say it, but they just saw Kirk Cousins show up and they go, we're going to get cornerbacks.
Yeah. Well, they got 2 corners plus... I mentioned St. Brown. They also got Jamon Moore out of Missouri. These are 2 tall wide receivers, and that's the thing. Those are the wide receivers I love.
They're expecting shootouts.
Guys that, hey, Aaron Rodgers, just throw it up into the end zone. Let these guys go and get it. But now we kind of move into the sadder news.
Yep.
Who's your first loser?
So my first loser that I have to come straight up and say is the New Orleans Saints.
Ooh, we did not say that. I thought you were going to take my team. I did.
No, I hope not. I actually have another team that I thought about saying first, but I was like, they're a little bit more obvious, so I'm going to go with this one. The New Orleans Saints, for me, what I see wrong is...
You didn't like how they traded up for Davenport?
No. What the hell were you thinking to trade up? It's not that you traded up for Marcus Davenport, because I like Marcus Davenport, but you traded a lot for Marcus Davenport. Teams traded less for arguably more than you just did for Marcus Davenport. If you're going to talk about getting fleeced, because that's our favorite thing we love to do, this one to me, I mean, Marcus Davenport, what the Saints are saying is this guy right here wins us a Super Bowl next year.
See, but I'll be completely honest. I did not mind the move.
I think they're going to win a Super Bowl next year?
It's not that I think they're going to win a Super Bowl, but you got to think of this team. The thing with the Saints is, arguably, you could say, yeah, you got to go play the next game that they did against the, Philadelphia Eagles would have been the next game, but they were one play away from playing another game for the Super Bowl. And they weren't going
a better defense got absolutely trounced.
And they weren't going to go with secondary help, although that was what lost them the game because their secondary doesn't know how to tackle right out to Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give a little bit of credit that, sure, if the pass rush
That's me being
was
a
a little bit
Vikings
better.
fan, by the way. I know I'm rubbing your face in it a little bit, but like the pass rush is something that I could see them going out to get. It's just, did they give up too much for it? Because the rest of their draft, I'm not really excited about anyone else that they drafted behind Marcus Davenport.
It's tough because they don't have a million needs. So, I mean, there's not a ton of things they needed to do. But I feel like for the Saints, there's been quite a bit of losing draft picks. that I think is going to burn them later. Because, yes, they have a young defense, and, they've kind of refreshed some pieces, especially like, like you look at Ingram, you look at Kamara there. But I sit there and I see Drew Brees, and Drew Brees is still great. He is still doing very well, but you really expected them to draft Rudolph. You really expected them to go and draft Mason Rudolph when they traded up, and they didn't. And what that, I'll say it again, what it really screams is that they truly believe that they have a missing piece, and apparently it's Marcus Davenport.
All right. So my team, my first loser, and I hope this is the team you were going to say, the Detroit Lions.
Oh, it's not the team I was
It's not?
Nope.
Maybe it's my second team, but the Detroit Lions to me, if you guys listen to the draft podcast that Sean, Dave, and I did, I hated their first round pick. I absolutely hated the Frank Ragnow pick, only because I saw it as a huge effing reach for them to go get Ragnow.
But he climbed up in a lot of boards.
He did climb up. However, to me, I was looking at a different position of need for them. Rashaan Evans was still on the board. You needed a linebacker.
Yeah.
You could go ahead and get that linebacker. They needed that interior offensive line. I know they needed some defensive line help, which they still could have gotten in Tavion Bryant. Tavion Bryant might have been a reach there as well, because I forgot Daron Payne went a little bit before that. But Ragnow to me was a pure reach for the Lions. Then the second pick that they made happened, where if you look at the running backs that were off the board at this point, Saquon Barkley, Rashad Penny, he went to the Seahawks. The Patriots pissed off Sean by going with Sony Michel, where he liked Sony Michel, but he really wanted him to go with Lamar Jackson. Then you got Cleveland going with Nick Chubb. Buccaneers go with Ronald Jones. Darius Geis is still on the board. And I know what people say. I know the news. Oh, he fell because teams felt like they couldn't trust him. There was all this negative stuff coming out about him. I would have taken Darius Geis over Kerryon Johnson. I like Kerryon Johnson. I like Darius Geis a lot more. To me, the first two picks in the draft, the Lions, I know what people are going to say. It's a Matt Patricia draft. Like a center. It's not sexy. But for me, total reach.
Well, you know what a lot of
that
people,
later on.
A lot of people are saying about the Ragnow pick.
What?
Bill Belichick liked him. Belichick really liked him.
He liked him,
Matt
so Patricia liked him. To me, and the Lions can prove me wrong. Yes, they got two needs off the bat. But I thought Ragnow was a reach. I thought they got the wrong running back in Kerryon Johnson, where Darius Geis to me is the better back, and you go ahead and take Johnson. I just didn't like the Lions and what they did.
Yeah.
Even after that, it's like the only pick that they made that I liked was their need of defensive line and them going with Deshaun Hand. That's it. That's the only pick I liked from them. Who's another loser for you?
So the other loser I want to talk about, and I don't want to... I feel like I might just be becoming a hater.
What division are they in?
They would be in the AFC West.
Okay, not the same team I'm thinking about.
No. So I feel like I'm just maybe starting to become a hater of these guys.
Is it the Raiders?
It is the Raiders. And I don't like it because I like
Sean
Derek Carr.
hated the Raiders' first pick of Colton Miller.
I don't... Here's the... Okay.
Because I like Colton Miller.
He's fine. They reached, without a doubt, to grab him. But he's fine. Here's the thing for the Raiders.
They got friend of the show Mo Hurst too.
They did. Mo Hurst is the only thing I think I like about what they did.
He fell.
The
hard.
heart condition thing, but he got cleared.
But we all had him in our first round.
Yeah,
and he
that's the thing that shocked me because he is cleared by doctors.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah,
like I said, friend of the show Mo Hurst.
So that's their good pick that they got. But here's the problem for the Raiders: their offensive line is good. So why did they draft back-to-back offensive linemen?
But the thing that was the huge thing
that
is...
now Tom Cable gets to go and ruin.
No. Maybe. But the whole thing with their offensive line is that they needed... Donald Penn was the big linchpin in this, where, first off, he's old as shit. He's 35 years old. So they didn't know how many more years he was going to have. Then there's news today that he could get accused or basically the headline had Donald Penn and domestic violence in the same sentence, which to me, I saw, that's probably why they went with a Brandon Parker and a Colton Miller so early, because John Gruden, he's not a dumb guy. He probably figured this out and was like, before people come out and find this out, I'm finding his replacement. I'm going to get his replacement so that we can have that right now. Would some people say it's a reach? Maybe a little bit to reach for Colton Miller, but like with the Lions, I think that the Colton Miller reach was less of a reach than Frank Ragnow in the first.
I don't know about that because even though I don't know, I think they're both reaches really. I was gonna say that either one would have, or that Ragnow, sure he would have been available in the second, but I really think that Colton Miller probably would have been available in the second as well.
I don't think so.
For me with the Raiders, it comes down to this: you had other things you could have done. You were available. You traded back from 10 to 15, and then what do you do with one of those picks that you get? You trade it for Martavius Bryant, who is not an upgrade over Crabtree.
That's a John
or a Jordy Nelson.
That's a John Gruden thing, though. A John Gruden thing. Love it or hate it. John Gruden will take veterans over rookies.
Yes,
he wants to fill that locker room with veteran players.
I'm glad you're saying filling the locker room.
Yeah,
because he's now filling the locker room. He got rid of Crabtree because of character issues.
Is it a good veteran?
And
probably
what did
not.
he do? Got Martavius Bryant, who has character issues. And who did he draft? Arden Key, who I like, but has character issues.
But
you're
Arden
filling
Key's
your locker room with bad mojo here.
Arden Key is the interesting one to me because
I like him as a player.
He's the one that I did it when Brandon was away from the Primetime Podcast for a week at the wee beginning of the college football season. I had a topic where could Arden Key be not the number 1 overall pick, but the best defensive prospect in this draft. That's the kind of hype he came into this season with. Yeah, does he have the off-the-field stuff? It's not quite like Baker. It's not domestic violence. So to me, I was always like, I don't really know where to put his off-the-field issues because it was basically, I don't know if I'm coming back to LSU. Yeah. That's basically what the off-the-field issue was with him. So I don't hate that pick. I like the Mo Hurst pick. The Colton Miller, Brandon Parker thing, I'm looking at that as John Gruden knew what was going on with Donald Penn and wanted to stay ahead of the curve on that one.
It's possible, but
is it a good draft? No. Is it a terrible draft? I don't think so. But the last team that I'll bring up as a loser, and this one's probably going to surprise you, Mark. It's probably going to surprise some of the people at home. I like 2 of the picks that this team made. However, overall, I'm not quite sure what I think of their draft overall. And that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Oh, okay. I'm going to be completely honest. Most of this loser weight goes on their number 1 pick, their first round pick. Going in another reach for me, reaching and taking Terrell Edmonds in the first round, when if you were going to go safety, you could have went with Justin Reed. You could have went with Anthony Everett from Alabama. Jesse Bates from Vanderbilt. There were guys way ahead of Terrell Edmonds on many people's boards. And I get that some people will say, if you like a guy, take a guy. Yeah. But in the first round, taking Little Edmonds, which is weird to say Little Edmonds because Tremaine Edmonds is the youngest pass rusher in this draft. I didn't like the pick for the Steelers. However, their next 2 picks, I love. Mason Rudolph, I think that was a great pick. Getting James Washington, the pick before, pairing them up, I really like. Marcus Allen could be a good pick. Okafor from Western Michigan could be a good player on the offensive line. Yeah. But I just feel like for me, and that's why I saved this team to last, because really if I had to pick, the Lions are my true loser of this draft. I don't know why the Steelers went and reached for Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah, it's a weird one, and when it happened, I was very surprised. And this is I debated in my head if I should say this, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it.
Go ahead.
I really think this would have gotten a lot more hate and a lot more heat when it happened if it wasn't a pick announced by Ryan Shazier.
You're talking about the first pick.
Yeah, the
Terrell Edmonds
pick. And because Ryan Shazier being able to walk down that stage is incredible, without a doubt.
Even though it did look like he was in a little bit of pain, still.
Oh, I'm sure he was in a ton of pain. I'm sure the next day he had to just sit and relax and do nothing because he was nearly paralyzed. Now, two things. One, because when this happened, I was shocked that nobody on Twitter was upset about this. And I'm like, where's all the backlash? Because this is a bad pick.
Because Ryan Shazier made the pick.
Because everyone was talking about that. Flip side, just want to throw this out there. It is an incredible job. If there's anybody who works in PR right now who is watching this, you know what I'm talking about.
Or wants to go into PR.
Yeah, it is an incredible job by the NFL, the way they have turned the Ryan Shazier story into this great comeback story instead of a...
Which I hope he never plays football again. Not because
his body is worth more than that.
Well, not because I don't want him to be happy, because I want him to be alive.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They did such an incredible spin on this. Instead of I'm never letting my children play football.
Look at him. Look at the resilience that come back from this.
Like, when everybody's talking about that, and nobody, when he comes out there and makes this pick, nobody on the radio, nobody on Twitter, nobody on, ESPN or NFL Network for sure.
It was just, oh my God, he's walking.
Yeah, nobody was like, then that's why I'm not letting my children play football.
There were probably some.
I'm sure there were.
Some at home going, nope. Little Johnny ain't playing.
And I'm not trying to criticize Shazier, obviously, because, I mean, he's... and what he's done is incredible, but it's just the kind of thing where you sit there and when the NFL talks about player safety and they change the rule where you can't now lead with your helmet, they're trying to change the kickoff into basically a punt.
Well, they're just trying to get rid of it, period.
Yeah, that's the goal at some point further down the line. But you sit there and you're like, here's something right here that was terrifying to see on the field. And it's not being used against them.
Which I'll tell you, I know this is off the topic of Ryan Shazier. The one football league where Dan Patrick had the guy on to talk about like rules and stuff, I love how he said they were going to do kickoffs for that football league.
Was that the Alliance?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where basically it's going to be, hey, you automatically get the ball at your own 20 or 25. And if you want to do an onside kick, it's all right, you get the ball at that yard line, 4th and 10. You have to convert. If you don't convert, the other team gets it.
I got a lot of opinions about the kickoff being changed, but it's not necessarily.
Do I want to see it go? No, because it takes away jobs from players too.
It does, and also Jeff Saturday made a really awesome point about it.
Guys who are trying to fight on that team as a special teamer.
This is your way. This is your foot in the door to be a special teamer. At this point, though, with the way they're doing it, they're essentially making it trying to make it more similar to a punt. Yeah, they're just trying to eat away at it. You know, it's like people like to say with government, taxes go up, they don't go down, or things like that. Or, you know, like when tolls go up, they put tolls up, they don't take tolls down. You take more and more and more. So essentially that's what the NFL is trying to do, of saying we're going to take away more and more of this kickoff thing. At this point, just take the thing away. I don't care. Just let us start. And I'm a big Devin Hester fan. Let us start at the 20-yard line because that's what they're going to do anyways. Just make it happen.
I also lied. There's one more team I'm going to bring up, and I actually really like their draft. They only had 4 picks in this draft. Do you know who I'm going to bring up?
Nope.
Tennessee Titans.
Oh, Titans did a good job, yeah.
Rashaan Evans. Love that pick.
Yep, Faller.
Harold Landry. Love him in the second.
I was begging for.
Yes.
If you follow me at the Mark Weber on Twitter,
I was
begging the Bears to trade up and get him. And they didn't.
And then the only questionable pick that I have for the Titans, however I like it, is Luke Falk. Yeah, it's like, you've got Marcus Mariota. You don't need a starting quarterback, but it's like, hey,
get hurt.
If Marcus ever goes down again, he had that, what was it, the knee that kept him out?
And
he got injured week 17.
It's a different kind of quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of
not that mobile guy.
Yeah, it's nice to kind of have something a little bit different for practices and things like that. And I'm not saying they're drafting him purely for practice.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have something a little bit different.
It's a solid backup, and I really like that one.
Like I said, guys get hurt. Marcus Mariota's already gotten hurt. Jameis Winston, the guy who got drafted right before him, also has gotten hurt.
These mobile guys.
Yep. You know I'm scared of him. I talk about it all the time. I like to watch him play. I am terrified to have one of them on my team.
Well, this is where you guys are going to come in. Let us know your winners and your losers. I know we really talked mainly teams, but if there's also a player that you
Joe
think
Flacco.
is a winner, well,
Big
not just
loser
that.
there.
I'm talking about like a player that got drafted. Like I would say Shaquem Griffin would be a winner in this one, to where he goes to a situation where he gets to play with his brother.
Yeah.
It's a team that really liked him. That was one that I'm glad he went to the Seahawks, because before the C.J. Anderson cut, I originally had him mocked in the 5th round to the Seahawks, had him raised because of that C.J. Anderson cut, and that moved around my 7th-round mock draft. Didn't matter, though, because I was wrong about most of them. But let us know what you guys think, your winners or losers from the NFL draft down below in the comment section.